Welcome to Journey of an Aesthete podcast. This episode is unusual in many respects. One of those respects is the first time I've done a show where I've had an individual who works in made this beautiful item right here. We've had an individual who is in the business of natural and very authentic and organic hair and skincare. And the woman on our show now has had this business for how long have you had this? 30 years?
34 years.
34 years, which is remarkable. So that's a first. Also, another first for our podcast is that I think it's our second show where we've had more than one guest. And so that's a kind of a landmark. So I wanted to have Jill Nadina and Stephanie, correct?
Yes.
What's your last name, Stephanie, if you don't mind?
Rice.
Rice?
Rice.
Rice. Oh, like Rice University in Texas. All right. Stephanie Rice and Jill. And Jill, I've known you.
Nadine. Remember Mitch? Nadine and Nadina. Nadina is the name in Swahili.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the origin of that or the
Sure. I first started the company in a Renaissance fair in Dallas because I had been wearing the product for a year at college, and people endlessly would compliment me. So you smell so good.
Wow.
And I wanted to do something that made people happy.
Absolutely.
And one of my friends went into the Peace Corps, and we crossed Africa from west to east. And when I met Swahili-speaking people, and I used my middle name Nadine, I would say, "Hi, I'm Nadine," and they would say, we say that Nadina.
Oh, interesting.
It was. And Mitch, it also means hope. And what a great thing to give people is hope. So hence, I love giving the creams. And it puts people smile on people's face. And that's another thing that I love is just making people happy. So when I started the company, it was a matter of just getting the product out there to see people go, wow, this smells so good. And I was an environmental science graduate from Texas A&M, and I wanted to save every tree in the rainforest and the water that is protected by clean trees and clean air. Yeah. And hence when I started, and I forgot to bring that tag, our tags folded out and showed the canopy of the rainforest and slash and burn and logging, and it gave Rainforest Action Network's address. And we would donate to that company. So that was in the early 90s.
That's amazing because as I failed to tell the audience, most people may not know so I'm Aubrey Hampton's son. I'm Mitch Hampton. And Aubrey founded Aubrey Organics. And so do you see the photo in the back? It's kind of hard to see, but I have a photo of Karsh's. See, it's hard to see, but black and white over there on the far of Karsh took. Of course, I also have this. Remember this?
Yes.
So
yes.
This is the original natural organic hair and skincare. So for many years, I was in this same business. And so the thing that there's so much to talk about. Again, I wish we did. We'll try to make good use of our time here. Do you mind? What you've said now is that one of your motivations, I mean, you were already making these products, correct? Or this would have been the early 90s, right? You were already making your own formulations. But one of the motivations sounds it was like political or ecological, that you were motivated, that wanting to change how things were done and very concerned about many of these issues. Was that there from the beginning? Is that, and then how did you meet my dad, or how did any of this? Because
I'll try to go chronologically. So I bought it in the Renaissance Fair. Somebody else does that, a man named Stephen Bennett. And I walked away from doing that, the Maryland Renaissance Fair, which he sells humongous amounts, but we're friends. And I went nationwide, went into my grandmother's kitchen. In 2 years, it went to $1 million company and into over 1,000 stores. So many people are like, that could never happen again. And I don't think it would with a small company anymore. But Body Shop wasn't out there, Bed Bath & Beyond, Body Works, etc.
Can I? Do you mind if I slow you down a little bit there?
Sure.
So you're saying that you were able to grow it to that proportion. You said two very interesting things. You said that's not possible in the global era now anymore, which is that in itself is interesting comment.
Mm-hmm.
You also said this was before Anitaroddick and her.
Yeah, and I fortunately got to meet her personally, Mitch.
Yeah.
Yes, in Baltimore. This is right before meeting your father, Aubrey.
Wow.
So interesting. All this culminated at one time. Major different big people.
Wow. You have to understand, this is the literally Stephanie, Jill, this is the first time I've learned some of this. I didn't know any of this. So this is kind of, I've only met you, socially at natural products conventions, but when you're doing things like that and just trying on these amazing formulations, you often don't have time to find out information like stories and, and so if you don't mind going into more detail about those years. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just getting excited.
No, that's fine. No, we'll chime in. So one of her franchise owners in Baltimore called me up. I had been voted as Best of Baltimore by Baltimore Magazine. Wow. And so we laminated that article. And at that time in 1,000 stores, we sent it out to all 1,000 stores. People said, I saw your picture 100 times going down the California coast. My first account was Whole Foods, when Whole Foods only had 2 stores, Austin and Dallas. So I ballooned with them.
I remember the Harnett family. And I remember talking to the Harnett family. The Harnett family was Bread and Circus. So, I come from the 70s and 80s.
The Boston group.
Which is the Bread and Circus era.
Right, right.
And so, as you know, that family created Whole Foods, I think 10 years later. So it's interesting. It's interesting how time is, how things change. But anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah, no, see, I didn't know that about you. And yeah. So their competitor in the beginning was Wild Oats, and Wild Oats was out of Boulder. And within my first 5 accounts, what was the year that I went across Africa, actually, Wild Oats was also one of my first when they had only 2 stores out of Boulder. And I grew with all their stores, which grew to 80 stores before Whole Foods bought. Now we're talking late 90s, but
late 90s.
Chronologically a little bit for my brain too.
Sure.
So the franchise owner said, Anitaroddick will be in Baltimore. Come and meet her. I would love to introduce you.
Uh-huh.
And it was wonderful to meet her. She gave me her number, said, if ever you need help and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I signed her book, and her book was fascinating how she started. Well, sadly, she died from a brain hemorrhage at younger than I am now.
Oh.
And that actually made me go after we went really, really big and literally probably 5,000 stores in the decade of the 90s. In 2 years, It was 1,000, and the whole 90s, it went to 5. And I know that number because from the beginning, my first employees were developmentally challenged, and still we work with this group out of Annapolis, Maryland, called Providence Center.
Huh.
And they made all the displays through the 90s. The head person said, we have made way over 5,000 displays. So
wow.
Then let's get to your dad. There was, I wish I could remember.
You might holding that thought. I know that I do want to discuss that because it's incredibly important, obviously. But I want to backtrack to Africa. You sort of threw in there a little aside. I've never been to the continent of Africa. I've never been to Hawaii, the state of Hawaii ever. This is all no. And you
27 when I did it.
So that could be almost its own episode, right? Your experience of Africa, right?
Good.
Do you mind, Stephanie, if it's just a few minutes, what was it like going there for the first time, and what did you do there, and what?
Semi-scary, because of course, you have this Africa's dark and scary or whatever. But Mona from Dallas was a really good friend of mine at Texas A&M. I was kind of her inspiration to go into the Peace Corps.
You were in the Peace Corps?
Well, she had never known of the Peace Corps, and I was considering it.
Wow.
And then I was like, I can't be in one place for 2 years. I was a traveler, and sure enough, the Renaissance Fair took me traveling. But when she said, come over, we'll cross Africa together. She had no fears because she had been living in Cameroon. Cameroon, if you know Africa, they call it I don't know to call it the armpit, but this where it scrolls down on the west side. So we went Cameroon, Congo, up the Congo River for 2 weeks on a giant tugboat.
Wow.
Canoes, I hate to call it torpedoing, but that's what it was like. They would be coming in to do their marketing. We were the only 2 white women out of over 1,000 people on the boat. And in my backpack, Mitch, I had carried probably 50 cream jars because I was like, oh, I'm going to barter them and trade them. And not that one. That's my little tiny sampler, but that's a nice sampler for you, any customers who want to just try some different scents. But anyhow, the jars were a little different. These are new designs from Hawaii, which is the more advanced time now. But
yeah, we'll get to Hawaii. But so you're saying that you were going on this odyssey, and kind of, would you say, rustic circumstances, right? Kind of.
Yeah, you're giving me chills, like remembering some of the experiences. Yeah.
And so I'm sure that influenced your cosmetics, right? Or in many things probably influenced your life. And
Yeah, I had 5 accounts then: Wholefoods, Wild Oats, 10,000 Waves, a spa in Santa Fe, and the other was Crescenthotel in Dallas, owned by Caroline. Huge, another story. But when I did get across the continent, I had run out of cream jars. I'm on a remote island off the coast of Tanzania called Lamu. One military vehicle, all the women veiled. You could only see their eyes, very Muslim, and just fabulous place. And a gentleman that had a smoothie factory, huge wall of different delicious smoothies you could get. He's like, what do you do? I told him what I did. He's like, oh my gosh, our wives do this. You need to come to our house. You need to make creams in the kitchen with my wife and daughters. And it was so cool. I came and their table was covered with jasmine and all these different flowers. And I never forget him saying, and we do ylangylang, and it drives us men wild.
Okay.
It's such a great memory of. And so I left their home with a bottle of hair oil.
That's amazing. I mean, so you're alluding there to, I guess, herbalism, right? Or
the essential oil use. Yes.
Well, yeah, and the fact that herbs, and my dad was really into herbs and much more than I am. I mean, again, I was into jazz music and a whole other thing. But any event, and animal rights activism and all that. But
well, he had some influence on that because he was just So moving fast forward, I'm doing the natural product shows.
Right.
And your father and Susan would come by, and I'd be pregnant with one of my 3 children.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, one year it was 2 right in a row. They're Irish twins, my youngest.
Wow.
And people would say, you still haven't had that baby? But Susan and Aubrey were like, we want to help your company. We want to be. Your dad was going to try to either merge me or he talked all different stories. He wrote it up in a couple of his books.
Right.
And I remember when you were asking when I met him, I'm now remembering TJ, my oldest, who's 30. Yeah, wow. He's the one that'll tie into the future story of saving the rainforest, saving the sandalwood forest. He was 2 years old in a bassinet. Wow. I was unbeknownst. And then I had Allison in a bassinet in my booth. He was in daycare that your dad always took pride that he financed the daycare at the Natural Product Show. He was one of the big sponsors for child care, so mothers could come and do the shows. And then
so
I had
my dad was instrumental in providing that for women.
Working moms, yeah.
Working moms, that's extraordinary. I mean, that's a whole. That's just one example of his what we would say forward-thinking, really forward-thinking humanitarian,
I love one of the last great articles on him was called The Renaissance Man.
Right.
So he and Susan, I'll never forget, they came by and they actually brought me your CD. I'm just remembering it.
Huh.
This is so cool. I'm almost
Isn't that-
here.
Wow.
Oh gosh, Mitch, what a big full circle. They brought me your CD, and Allison, my middle child, was in a bassinet, and he and Susan just adore all of them, you know. But
Wow.
and unbeknownst to me, I was pregnant with my third child, Travis, who's in the Army now, following my father's footsteps. But they said, come to Tampa. We want you to see our operation. And so I made a point, and doggone, I was blessed enough to, on that trip, stop at Roxanne Quimby of Burt's Bees in North Carolina, where you are. She was in Raleigh at that time.
It's a small world, isn't it, Stephanie?
Isn't it? Yeah. And then got down to, I didn't even know I was going to get, I was also going to my brother's wedding. That's what it was. And my husband at the time called up. He said, Aubrey Organics company said, come by. He can see you on Monday or Wednesday. Like, you're going to get 1 hour to see him. Wow. And I go in, and they go, he gives me a 2-hour tour of that whole place. They take me to Fern's Steakhouse that night.
Was I there? Did I go with you guys?
No, that wasn't that time. No, you did go another time, though.
That's right.
I can still see you and Susan talking authors and books. And
oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, she was brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, that's when they really. Susan said, "Oh, I love this part." She said, "I was doing New York market shows, the Jacob Javits, for over 10 years, staying in a hotel, going up there 5 times a year. Right. And I was so done with it. But then Susan's like, Nadine, here's the keys to our Soho apartment.
Right.
You can stay. And I'm like, what? Soho? And you know the apartment, 3,000 square foot apartment overlooking Broadway.
I remember it.
And she said, don't stop doing your shows. That's what you need to do. And God bless, I just kept doing it. And you know that how generous they were. There would always be play tickets on the table because they were playwriters and so forth and so on.
Well, it's interesting to hear all this because in a way, I think they were instrumental, right, in your growth.
Absolutely. At that time period, absolutely. Yeah. And then I should maybe jump forward because coming into the last 12 years, you know, since Aubrey has sadly passed and Susan sadly passed prior to that, your dad always said, Nadine, go to Hawaii. There's nowhere in the world that more people come in all the time. They want to buy gifts. They'll buy your product.
Yeah, they will.
Here's the tree jar telling you when I'm going to go into the. Here, should I go up close? There we go.
I have this.
Oh, that's the bee one. That's kind of funky one, but.
I should say, do you while we're holding these up, do you want to talk about? Do you mind talking about your design because it's extraordinary? These are really so beautifully made. I'm sure that's a whole other topic, but is that getting us to the topic?
I'm to it, but I want to start from the beginning of the last 12 years going to Hawaii.
Right.
So Aubrey says go, and this is right before I guess he's.
Yeah.
I start going and I start marketing, and then within a month, I meet a man. I had always said one day. Okay, wait. No, I got to go back. All the way to being pregnant with the oldest son. So now we're back 30 years ago, honeymoon in Honolulu. There's a Bishop Museum that had a whole exhibit room on the loss of the sandalwood forest. So bear with me, follow this. Because it's super huge magic. And when I tell this story, people cry. It enriches young people to believe in their dreams because it just blows me away this occurred. So I'm pregnant with my oldest son, 5 months. I read about the sandalwood forest being destroyed. Sorry, China. You're the ones who came in, took the forest from the big island of Hawaii. They knew that it was an aphrodisiac. You know, aphrodisiacs, God forbid they're doing shark fins and everything else.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when you say sorry, China, I'm not going to say sorry. I mean, are you calling out? Are you calling out a dictatorship for their behavior? That's I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't want to get
I'm a little less. I should say.
kind.
Well, I think there's right and wrong, and for me, sensitivity to even culture always takes a back seat. Front seat is it right or wrong? A little bit. I mean, I'm just saying. So again,
I agree. I don't even know why the sorry came out. I'm sorry they did it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, right. I thought you were saying sorry.
Sorry they didn't have awareness that you don't destroy a whole forest,
right?
Because you need to have an aphrodisiac or the shark population or rhinoceros tusks. I
know at that time my dad was very talked about that a lot.
Yeah, and why spiritually he's come through in whatever way that now I met the sandalwood man, totally different, but he had the same vision.
Right.
I wish I had that article. We got to bring that in another time.
Okay.
10,000 sandalwood trees this young man 10 years ago had in his greenhouse.
Wow.
Oh yeah, we do have it in our brochure.
Yeah, well,
in our brochure.
Oh, there you go.
Pull that up close to the. So his is, I don't know how to do this. That one. That's his forest.
Yeah.
This one's Dr. Joe Maloof saving old growth forest. Because I'm always trying to save something along the way with selling creams.
Right, of course.
Educating people. Instead of being in a classroom of 30, I've been able to luckily do millions. So.
Right.
So 10 years of being in Hawaii, I've now planted myself on my hands and knees 1,000 sandalwood trees. All the stores that carry my product have planted them at their stores. And so that dream came true, but here's one of the special threads. The first time I went up with the sandalwood man, biggest gathering of people, 40 people showed up, Sierra Club, Cornell graduate students, the University of Hawaii, Forestry Service. The head of the Forestry Service does a big Hawaiian prayer circle.
Oh, wow.
I get kind of emotional because Hawaiians are very, what's the word? Stuff that they honor their land and they ask for permission by the Pele. Pele's the volcano goddess or the mama, the spirit of the island, to have permission to even plant these trees on her ground. I found that fascinating. Yeah. So we do this big prayer circle. Yeah. We go off as students and etc. Myself and I had brought volunteers. And we plant 700 trees. And we're also looking for the palila bird, a particular beautiful yellow bird on that mountain that's going extinct because it lived on the sandalwood forest. Well, we plant for 3 hours. And this is where we all can start crying. Who calls me to say, Mom, what are you doing? Who's now a 20-year-old young man in college going for his education degree. And it was my son who was in my belly. And I'm like, you were in my belly when I said I would come back. And I felt the higher spirit when I was saying that in that Bishop Museum in Honolulu. Now 30 years have gone by. And that's why I tell people, believe in your dreams. It's just boggling to. And so many people tell me, Nadine, you got to write your memoirs or your book because I have a lot of cool serendipities in my life. But so I went on and I stayed hardcore to doing those trees. I have to give credit to Mark Hansen at that time. He, with his other volunteers, including drug-related kids, Pacific Quest in Hawaii, have planted over 60,000 trees.
Wow.
Yeah. And I give regards to him because he's health-wise not doing well. So we got to do it when we can do it. And everybody,
it's not, that people talk still a lot about making a difference, and those they now become sometimes tired phrases or advertising slogans even, right? But at their essence, before that, before they're corrupted or before they're overused, there's actually some truth to them. So I mean, you are someone that is making a difference. That's really in terms of a different relationship to, you know, not just the earth, but you know why you're doing what you're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I try to do it through the brochure. The brochure like shows the different designs. The product has endless uses.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some of my philosophy.
Right.
These are different size jars. Oh, here's another favorite. Where's my wooden applicators? Wooden applicators. This young man I met at
I should tell the audience what we're doing right now brings back so many memories.
I know.
Of when Aubrey Organics existed. And I would actually be sitting in some kind of chair at a booth and right. Again, it's amazing. It's like the aroma and there's so much to say, but yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
That's what I was going to go into after this. So Michael Nizo, he is our the man who makes our wooden applicators. He dove off a pier at 14 on Kauai and severed his spine.
Oh.
Wheelchair bound.
Mm.
Another teary moment. And in Hawaii, it's called your hanai, meaning you're spiritual. He's a spiritual son to me. I have spiritual moms out there that have helped with this process of Hawaii. And I need other people to get on board and go do it. He sadly also another reason to, if anybody can purchase, he just got in a critical car wreck and has to be in physical therapy, already having been in a wheelchair with a broken spine. Anyhow, he makes our applicators that can be used just like this beautiful glass one. And inside, you can see it doesn't spill out because it doesn't have water. The product is very simple, pure coconut oil, almond oil, aloe, a bit of wax. So it helps. It's super concentrated, moisturizing.
Yeah.
And so by using an applicator, you don't put the germs back in and the smells are just divine. This one's a moon spice, one of my originals. Starlight is a vanilla and sandalwood.
Right.
Here's the ylangylang. Lavender's calming. We have another straight calming scent. Mm-hmm. So, and then the jars, you were asking about that. This is really cool. And I noticed I forgot my mother whale, baby whale jar, which is, there's a jar that has a mother whale and a baby whale on it. Oh, there we go.
Well, I was asking about about a number. I mean, you're sharing a lot that's very important. But just about design, where did you get the idea? Because your designs are so specific and they're so well done.
Over the ocean.
What I mean is you put a lot of love into it. They're so well done. And did you want to just talk a little about how that came about, or just something you always did, or what was the?
Well, when I got started in the Hawaii experience, believe me, it's not easy to get over there and stay there, but people took me under their wing. People knew of me from years and years earlier because I had a run in Hawaii in the late 80s, early 90s before all the children. So stores would go, oh, I remember you, or oh, we had a sales rep. That's what it is. We always need sales reps if anybody out there wants to get it in their area. And she put it everywhere in Hawaii, like 40 some stores, all major islands, Kauai, Oahu, Maui, and Big Island, even cruise ships. Mm-hmm. So that was early 90s. I'm going back in early 2010. Yeah. Actually, 2010s when the sandalwood all reoccurred. And I'd go into stores and they'd go, oh, I remember you. Yes, we want another order. So along that way, how this got designed was I met different potters.
Yes.
So,
it makes sense.
Yeah. Of all things, an entomologist studying at University of Hawaii.
So you're saying that these
has a dragonfly.
The aesthetics of these containers or these come from
Pottery jars that aren't plastic. That's a big point.
right, but you're saying that they're Hawaiian inspired or come directly from Hawaii? Is that what you're?
Well, true. But we have turtles here in Maryland. Turtles are
Right,
everywhere.
of course, that I didn't mean that. So I was talking about the origin of the is something from Hawaii. I mean, yeah, turtles are not just Hawaii, but wow.
Yeah, so they're collector items. They can also be refilled.
Yeah.
So environmentally, I grew up close to a plastic plant in Houston. Actually, I was thinking about the thread with Disney. I was telling Steph earlier. Yeah, we used to have this in an older brochure. My father was one of the top with NASA in the very beginning.
I remember this.
Yeah, Henry Earl Clements.
Yeah.
Super proud of him. Came from a very poor family. Became the assistant director. Your dad loved him. They both talked on the phone. But Dad toured Walt Disney. I don't know if you knew this part.
No, I don't. It's all new to me.
Yeah, and your dad had an individual house covered in Disney cell pictures.
My dad was in Disney. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And when Dad toured him of NASA, my dad was so modest about it. He would say he asked him to sign a napkin. He signed us each a picture. And in the bottom, mine says, to Jill, my first name, best wishes, Walt Disney. But what is my picture? It's Alice in Wonderland, where all the flowers have faces. And I'm like, these are all the flowers with the faces. Because they're all the different scents of what's on our earth. And there was this, and if there's any Alice in Wonderland. And
no,
it's like, I named my daughter Alice.
That's
Allison.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a cool thread with your father and I. So, yeah, lavender is great. Yeah, let's talk about some of the essential oil uses.
Yes.
Lavender is good for calming.
Absolutely.
Ylangylang, that's the one that man in Africa said it drives them wild, and hence an aphrodisiac. Patchouli is an aphrodisiac. Sunshine I really used and promoted a lot during COVID. It's really good for anti-depression. It's an uplifter. People get down too easy. I'm a woman that always give gratitude. Okay, I know what I want to shift to if you're okay. Some of the really cool, famous people that have crossed my path. This will be fun.
It's amazing.
So I used to do the New York gift show. A blessed man, Alfred Savinelli, if I may mention, from Native Scents Company in Santa Fe, used to stay with Paul Simon and took Paul Simon and Edie Brickell my brochure. Comes back to the show and says, Paul and Edie really want to meet you, at least Paul. And Paul Simon walks in the booth and says, how'd you get this started? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have Paul Simon like close as, really 3 feet away. And I'm like, I tried to stand on a park bench in Central Park to see you at the far end of Central Park. Anyhow, I said, I started at the Waxahachie Renaissance Fair. And he's like, hey, Edie Brickell from Dallas.
Right.
They got the cream. I'm pretty sure they gave it to Sting because they all lived in the same place. And I know Alfred was friends with Sting.
Yep.
Then one of the good ones was our tags folded out, as I said, and showed the canopy, the logging, the slash and burn, and Rainforest Action Network's address. And we would give them donations. And they wrote me a testimonial and said, Nadina, it works. People are contacting us, asking us how we can help with the rainforest. Then they called and they said, Grateful Dead has all done a concert tour for fundraising for Rainforest Action Network. So this was 2 years before.
Well, did you know that my dad and Jerry Garcia were friends?
No, that's what I was going to tell you was Jerry got one of the jars, but go ahead.
Well, because Jerry used Aubrey Organics all in the 70s and 80s. It was the only thing he would use at that time. So maybe, and also I would talk to him on the phone.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, which meant nothing to me because I'm not a rock person. I didn't grow up. I mean,
right, you're a jazz.
It's very ironic that I'm this 14-year-old kid in the 80s hearing hearing Mr.
Oh,
Garcia call wanting to speak to Aubrey and thinking, oh, you know, it's funny, right?
I've never heard that story. I did not
Yeah.
know that. Oh, that's it. So listen to this. So Rainforest Action Network said, Nadina, we want you as a host and a guest for this $350 place setting. And all of Grateful Dead is going to be here in San Francisco.
Right.
And we want you to speak about what you're doing for the rainforest.
Oh, wow.
Well, one of the babies was on the way and I could not go to San Francisco. So they said, will you send a cream jar to everyone so we can put it every one of the Grateful Dead's place setting? So I had the honor to remember that they sat down at that big dinner fundraiser and there was a cream jar at their dinner place setting. That's a thrill. Okay, another big one, my favorite also. This one's really big and favorite. Sarahmachlachlan.
Right.
We all know who she is, and if you don't, Google her. She's really, really special woman.
Sure.
Looking for my Starlight tag. My vanilla and sandalwood, she bought it on the big island of Hawaii, called up the company and said, we want you on concert tour with our concert. At that time, I had a sales manager and I said, I'm not going to pay to go on a concert tour and sell creams. You know, they were all outdoor venues supporting women musicians. 2 days later, I'm in Woodstock, New York. My best friend puts her on the radio. She's like, your babies love this woman. And I'm like, oh, she just asked us to go on concert tour. And so I go back to my office. I tell my manager, call her and ask her if we can do concert tours wherever we have sales reps. And in those years, we had sales reps all over the US, which looking for a job, we need sales reps. So Sarah says, we love your company. You can do whatever shows you want to do. And I'm like, how does Sarahmachlachlan know my company at that time?
Yeah, right.
So I say, I'll do 3 of the shows. And I still say, forgive me, my youngest son, Travis, because mama had to cut off good nursing and move on and do the show with Sarahmachlachlan. Yeah. So at Meriwether in Columbia, Maryland, I'm setting up and she walks by and somebody said, we'll go Sarah. So I walk up and I said, Sarah, I'm Nadina. I want to thank you for inviting us on tour. She turns around. She's like, oh, Nadina, I love your product. How do you know my product? Oh, I bought it in Captain Cook, where we work a lot in Hawaii now. Okay. 27 years later, Travis was in my arms. He's in me now. Sarah says, I love your product. She hangs with me for almost an hour. So that night I'm driving to your territory, Raleigh, North Carolina, to the next show. It's rainy. It's a dreary day. I write her a note and I said, I did a line for Nordstrom's that year. And I said, why don't you endorse my Nordstrom line? And I sent her the note, didn't see her. The next day I said, I'm only at one of your other shows and all my sales reps are doing the 50 other venues all over the US. Right. And I come to the Charlotte, North Carolina show and there she is waiting at my booth. Okay. Just, I would love to endorse your Nordstrom line, but you need to write my management. So we wrote her management. And her management came back and said, Nadina, we don't want to endorse Nordstrom, but we want you to create the Lilith Fair tour scent next year to be sold in her booth, Sarahmachlachlan's booth, with her CDs, her artwork, her t-shirts. I was just awestruck. And it went to 50 more venues year 2 of the Lilith Fair. So I said, Sarah, what scent do you want? I said, Starlight was the one you bought in Hawaii, but Spice and Fire. So Lilith, I'll let you all Google Lilith. Sure. Lilith, Spice and Fire is very grounding. It's actually one of my favorite scents that we make with the company. It's got patchouli, rose geranium, hoe wood, and clove. And rose geranium and clove are very grounding for women of my early age. Okay. And then the 3rd year, she blessedly donated $40,000 worth of the cream to battered women's shelters. Right. And we got published in Cosmopolitan magazine, the fact that she took it on tour. So that was another fun one. I also know Jack Johnson got it from a student group in Hawaii. Goldie Hawn got it.
Stephanie, you've been really quiet. I was like a little what's the word?
I'm in now.
Well, I mean,
support.
I don't understand that, but that's fine. That's me. But do you have anything you want to say about how you met Jill, or what brought you into all this, or because you're here?
We've been old friends, and since my kids graduated college and I'm an empty nester, I said, "Hey, Jill, do you need anybody to help support you?" And
she does in more ways than one.
So I enjoy hearing the story. I love the mission,
Right?
Mission, and wanted to make a difference also.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I just I'm a little overwhelmed by all the stories, because I know that they're all there, but when you hear it up close like this and this kind of context, and
I know I'm very grateful because I've always wanted to get it on paper, or I never write the book where everybody keeps saying write the book, but
I know that
donor that we donate to, who I'm so proud of, is Dr. Joan Maloof. She's saving old growth forest, our oldest forest. And even being an environmental science graduate from A&M, and I was working term papers were on what we're losing with the rainforest. Right. She's working on the US, and even with a degree, I did not realize we have cut 96% of all of our trees in the US once in the last 400 years. Sure. Imagine that. It's graphically, when you look at a map of it, it would blow you away. And now they're not been replaced. You can't replace an old growth forest, an old growth forest.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's hard.
Mentioned. So anyhow, proceeds go to that. So I just want people to know.
Well, that's all important. So we unfortunately, good things come to an end, like this episode, and we're getting the 1 hour mark. Is there anything you want to tell people? Tell people, get Nadina's creams. And
yes, get Nadina's creams. We give you a special. If you buy 3 of a particular size jar, you get 2 more free of the smaller, or 5. It's on the website. The website's pretty detailed also. So visit the website, share it with friends and family. Let us know about stores in your area.
Well, I really want to thank you for your immense generosity and your spirit, and also too the environmental activism and the concern about trees and all the rest of it, because it's important, and certainly it's important if we're going to continue as a species, and try to on this planet. So
I'm a grandmom now, believe it. So it's like future the children. We want them to breathe good air. We get our air from the forest.
Sure. I thank you for being on our podcast, and I hope you people get your products.
Thank you, Mitch, so much.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.
Aloha.
Aloha.